nervous system. It is the seat of the chemical brain or the emotional brain. It can begin to manufacture substrates and derivatives and molecules equal to our intention, and our data supports that. So that's what we're going to be doing today, but we're going to be doing it for the very molecules that begin to create a transcendental experience or a mystical experience. So science then for us is the language that we use to demystify that process. We feel that the moment you talk about religion or culture or tradition, or you mention words that have a spiritual connotation, it tends to divide an audience. But if we use science as that contemporary language and we can build models of understanding, the learning process, the learning of that information begins to install new circuitry in the brain. But the repetition and the reviewing of that information, the repeating of it, the thinking about it, the analyzing it, is really the building process neurologically in the brain. So what we're interested in doing is demystifying the what and the why so that the how gets easier. And the way we do that is we exchange and teach back that information to one another, because if you can begin to remind yourself what you learn, nerve cells that fire together, you begin to install the hardware in your brain in preparation for the event. And if nothing is left to conjecture or superstition or dogma, and you know exactly what you're doing and why, the how gets easier, and you can assign meaning to the act. And when you assign meaning to the act, you switch on your prefrontal cortex, and it wants an outcome. It's using intention and energy because it wants to actually experience the truth of that understanding. And if we can get our behaviors to match our intentions and our actions equal to our thoughts, we can get our mind and body working together, we are going to have a new experience. A new experience enriches the circuits in your brain, but the end product of that experience is called an emotion. And the feeling and the emotion that's created from the experience is teaching the body to understand what the mind has intellectually understood. So we'll build models of understanding in our journey here. We'll build that model together, and then we'll take a break, and we'll go right into the application, right into the meditation. How does that sound? Now, I'm a very practical person as well. When I started seeing people in our work step out of wheelchairs or have dramatic changes in their physical health, I knew that it was time to start measuring what was going on in their brains, what was going on in their hearts, what was going on in their biology, their gene expression, their immune system, their urine, their waste. We were looking at everything bit of information to understand the process. And we started around 2012, where I got a group of scientists together. And one of the things that we did that I thought was so valuable, because I wanted to really see the inner workings of the mind in real time, is we would randomly select people in the audience, and we would do a real-time brain scan on them. And we're doing that right now at this event. We're still doing it. Whenever you've seen the brain in action, that's called mind. Mind is the brain in action. So we were watching these people, and we were looking to see how we can begin to change brainwave states. That the majority of people that we measured in the beginning of the event, their brains were firing very incoherently. Different compartments of the brain were not talking to other compartments. They were out of rhythm. They were out of order. And if you were to measure those brainwave states, they're very incoherent. Waves are not lining up, and when they interfere with each other, they cancel each other out. And there's chaos in the brain, and there's energy that's always lost when there's a lack of coherence. Does that make sense? And one of the things that drives the brain to do that is the stress hormones. The stress hormones are a great way to create an arousal where the brain is getting preoccupied with over-focusing on people and objects and things and trying to control and predict everything in our lives. And the brain begins to compartmentalize and begins to modulate. And when the person is over-focused in that state, they're very narrow-focused. They're very narrow-focused on whatever it is that's causing them to be that way. So we just started to think, okay, how could we change brainwaves? And if we could broaden our awareness and we begin to sense space and take our attention off of everything physical and material in the three-dimensional world, is the act of sensing space and broadening our focus, could it begin to slow our brainwaves down and cause those different compartments of the brain that were once divided and modulated, could they begin to synchronize? And that's exactly what we saw. We saw that the act of focusing on nothing, I don't know how to explain nothing to a materialist, but it's the absence of something. It's the absence of anything physical and material. The act of broadening your focus and sensing space began to cause different compartments of the brain that were firing out of order or firing at too high of a frequency begin to regulate and slow down. And some people did it so quickly that all of a sudden we saw the brain go into this super aroused state. And it was happening more than once at an event. It wasn't just a random act. We started seeing the brain moving into these really super high gamma brainwave states. And gamma is, in a sense, super consciousness. And so we'd see a person hit that point where if you looked at a brain scan, you'd see these little lines called a strip chart, and you can see when a person's in beta, and then you can see the brain waves slow down and they move in alpha, and then slow down a little bit more, they can move into theta, and all of a sudden you see the brain switch on, and like grabbing a handful of Crayola crayons and going like this to the brain scan, all of a sudden it looks like a snowstorm. And there's an enormous amount of energy that's taking place in the brain, and many of those people, as they move to gamma states, that superconscious state, they pass through that realm called high beta. And high beta is that realm where we're pretty much aroused because of the hormones of stress, but the person was sitting absolutely still. And they were just transitioning. They were moving right up to gamma, but they had to pass through beta to get there. We started seeing these patterns that were taking place. And we got to the point where we were able to predict it, to induce it, and to control it. And anything that is predictable in science becomes a law. And so we saw these people then move into these states where the brain would get super aroused, but right before that super aroused state, we saw them move into this brainwave state called theta. And when we saw them switch into theta, not a little theta, but a little bit of an abnormal amount of theta, outside of normal, outside of natural, just a little further where there was a lot of theta. When we saw that, we knew exactly what was going to happen next. We knew that the person all of a sudden was going to connect to some energy or information, and the arousal that was created when they went into gamma was not fear, it was not pain, it was not aggression. The arousal that they reported from the event was ecstasy. It was bliss. And along with that change, I knew that they couldn't make their brain do that. I knew that on some level it was happening to them. And when they had those arousals that took place in high gamma, the arousal took place in the limbic brain, the seat of the autonomic nervous system, the chemical brain, the emotional brain. And think of the autonomic nervous system as that part of your brain that does all those automatic functions. Body temperature, blood sugar levels, hormone levels, all the things that are happening that give you health, behind the scenes of your awareness is the autonomic nervous system. And when it's in balance, we have health. And when we're in stress and when we're in survival, stress and survival knock the autonomic nervous system out of order, out of balance. And sometimes the autonomic nervous system never makes its way back to order. But we saw people then when they were able to slow their brain waves down. Now, I want to talk a little bit about brain waves so that we can demystify the process when it comes to using the kaleidoscope. Most of the time when people are conscious and awake, they're sitting there and they're paying attention. Their brain's job is to create meaning and coherence between what's going on in the outer world and what's going on in their inner world. And our senses plug us into three-dimensional reality, and that's a lot of information coming into the brain. What we're seeing and hearing and smelling and tasting and feeling, our brain has to make sense of all of this information. So as it begins to process all of this information and try to create meaning between the outer world and the inner world, the majority of our attention in beta is on the outer world. Are you with me still? And when we're conscious and awake, we're in beta. And if you have to give a speech, or you have to take a test, or you meet a bunch of people for the first time and you're trying to remember all their names, your brain kind of perks up into a little higher level of beta brain waves. That's called mid-range beta, and that's when you get a little bit more ready. That's when you get a little bit more awake, you get a little bit more aroused because it means something now. And normally, that little elevation and arousal causes us to do something. And if we can channel our energy with a behavior or an action, we could actually mitigate that and relieve it. But when you go into a high level of stress, and you're in a lot of anxiety or a lot of anger, a lot of frustration, a lot of fear, you move into that high beta brainwave state, and it's 3 times higher than lower level beta. And in that state of that kind of alarm and that over-ready, anxious system, no new information can enter that nervous system that is not equal to the emotion that person is experiencing because it's not relevant. And when we were looking at those real-time scans, we saw some people making their brain worse. That's because they were analyzing their life within the disturbing emotions, some stress hormone emotion. And as they were analyzing their life within that emotion, they were thinking in the past. And the arousal of the thought was driving their brain further out of balance. They were over-focused. People begin to close their eyes and they diminish the amount of information coming to their brain, and they begin to relax, and there's music filling the space, or there's some type of rhythm that's taking place. You can begin to slow your brain waves down, and your inner world starts becoming more real than your outer world. And when you slow your brain waves down, you become more creative. The brain tends to see in pictures. It tends to dream and see in images or symbols. And the voice in your head that's always talking to you, that default system, the voice in your head when you move from alpha to beta tends to go away. And the brain begins to slow down. And some people can allow their brain waves to slow down to such a degree that they move into theta brainwave states. And in theta, there's very little activity in the neocortex. There's very little activity in the autobiographical self. There's very little energy in the brain that plugs us into three-dimensional reality. In a sense, we're slowing down the mechanism, and when you're in that state called theta, your body's resting in a light state. It's resting in a light state of sleep, and at the same time, you're conscious and awake. The body feels so safe in the environment that it could actually move into a light state of rest while you stay conscious and aware, and that is a very, very hypnotic state. And when you're suggestible to information in a hypnotic state, the door between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind is wide open to information. And in theta then, you're suggestible to all kinds of information. And what we discovered is when people were broadening their awareness and their eyes were closed, and they moved what was called 10 standard deviations outside of normal in theta. That means they're way outside of theta. And there's a lot of theta taking place in their brain. And they're suggestible to information, but they're not getting information from their environment because they're in a meditation. Their eyes are closed, and the music is filling the space, and they're putting more attention on the immaterial and less attention on the material. When they're in that state of theta, there's only one other place where you can get information, and that's frequency. And all frequency carries information. And when their brain was functioning, not only in an alpha state, but a coherent alpha state, that the act of sensing space and broadening their awareness caused the different compartments of the brain that were divided to begin to synchronize, to begin to unify, to begin to become more orderly and organized. And what syncs in the brain links in the brain. And so the brain went into alpha, but coherent alpha brainwave states. And when you have waves that are in unison, that have a cadence, that have a rhythm, energy builds in the brain. And if they were able to sustain that state and slow their body down, they'd move into coherent theta brainwave states. And when the nervous system is coherent and the thinking brain is dialed down, the autonomic nervous system has a little tiny radio receiver that sits right on the top that has tiny crystals that are sensitive to electromagnetism. And just like a homing pigeon, or just like a chameleon, or just like a turtle that navigates and finds its way, a little GPS system is right in our brain. And it picks up information beyond what we're seeing and smelling and hearing and tasting and feeling. It's picking up information from that unified field of energy called the quantum field. And we discovered when the brain was coherent, it could read information from the field. And that person went into an aroused state with their eyes closed. They were connecting to energy and connecting to information. And the limbic brain, the seat of the autonomic nervous system, was on fire. There was an enormous amount of gamma brainwave energy in that limbic brain. And that limbic brain is controlling and coordinating all other systems in the body. And in a sense, the moment energy is informing matter, every single cell in the body is getting informed with greater information. And so many times when that person hit that state of connection, the body somehow got an upgrade. There was the tumor, now it's gone. There's the Parkinson's, now it's gone. There's the spinal cord injury, now it's gone. Somehow the body got an upgrade because of the energy it was interacting with. How many people understand? Turn the person next to you and explain. For those of you that are joining us, hopefully you can find somebody to talk to about this. Otherwise, take a moment and review it. Different brainwave states. Go through them. By the time we're in the middle of our lives, if we keep thinking the same way, if we keep doing the same things and behaving the same way, if we keep feeling the same emotions that become familiar to us, by the time we're in the middle of our life, 95% of who we are is a state of unconscious thoughts, attitudes, beliefs, and perceptions, unconscious behaviors and habits, automatic emotional responses. So 5% of the time we're conscious, and 95% of the time most people are running a program are unconscious. And 5% of the conscious mind working against 95% what has been programmed subconsciously. The only way that we can begin to change those hardwired attitudes, beliefs, and perceptions, automatic habits and behaviors, and responsive emotional reactions is by changing our brain waves. Take a look at the brain waves that we just talked about. The brain waves. So look at beta. Beta brain waves is a fast frequency. You're all sitting here in beta. You're conscious and awake, hopefully. If I asked you to close your eyes, take a couple breaths and relax your body, The fact that there's less information coming into your nervous system, your brain waves slow down and you tend to see in pictures, in images, the voice in your head that's talking to you, the analytical mind goes away. Get your body super relaxed while you stay awake, and now you're in theta, and theta is that hypnotic state where the door between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind is wide open to information. So beta represents the conscious mind, and alpha, theta, and delta start representing the subconscious mind. And when you're in theta, see the brain waves even slower, there's less activity in the mechanism, in the neocortex, in the thinking brain, in the autobiographical self. What plugs you into three-dimensional reality. And look at delta, that's when the brain is in a deep sleep. There's very little brain activity there. And then gamma, of course, is that super aroused state. Gamma frequencies tend to be higher than beta, and that is that state of superconsciousness. You got it? Now take a look at this next slide. So then we move from high-range beta to mid-range beta to low-level beta, and what's separating the conscious mind from the subconscious mind is the analytical mind. And so 5% of who we are is our conscious mind by the middle of our life, and then 95% has been programmed subconsciously. And as you slow your brain waves down from beta to alpha, you cross the analytical mind, and now you're entering the operating system of the subconscious. Come on, you with me still? When you're in theta now, there is no analytical mind. The door is wide open and you're very suggestible to information. And suggestibility is your ability to accept that information, believe in that information, surrender to that information as if it's the truth without analyzing it. And that's exactly the information that begins to program the autonomic nervous system to manufacture a pharmacy of chemicals equal to the information we're being exposed to. How many people understand that? So then the question was, could we begin to induce a state of suggestibility by having people open their eyes? To do it with their eyes open, just like they were doing it with their eyes closed. And we decided to use a kaleidoscope as a way to induce a level of trance in the brain. And when you're gazing into a kaleidoscope and you're looking at all those different geometric patterns, those patterns bypass the perceptual networks in the brain that are associating with knowns. When you look at the kaleidoscope, you can't see a person that you can recognize in there. You can't see a place or an object or a thing that in the kaleidoscope. And so by fixating on those patterns, they begin to unlock the door between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. And as you look into the kaleidoscope, the brain moves into a state of trance. When the brain moves into a state of trance, you stop analyzing and thinking. And when you stop analyzing and thinking, you slow your brain waves down. And when you slow your brain waves down, you become very suggestible to information. And if you can use the kaleidoscope to induce that level of suggestibility, when a person is in that right state, we can begin to expose them to information that can begin to encode into that limbic brain or that chemical brain, and the autonomic nervous system can begin to manufacture a pharmacy of chemicals equal to that information. Does that make sense? Okay, so take a look at this chart then really quickly here before I call Hemel out here. So then when you move into a state of trance, you do this all the time. You freeze frame and your brain pauses for a second. When you move into trance, you have to get beyond your analytical mind. As you move into trance, if you're not thinking and analyzing, you're going to slow your brain waves down from beta to alpha. If you can get into a lower state like theta, you become very, very suggestible to the information that you're being exposed to. So just like a television commercial that can tell you that as you age, you're going to get weaker and your immune system's going to get weaker and your joints are going to hurt and your quality of life's going to go down. But don't worry, because we have the thing that's going to make you feel better. Look at all these people smiling. They're taking it. And if you're in the state where you're not analyzing and thinking and your brain is in a suggestible state, they begin to program people to behave in certain ways, to make certain choices. So instead of programming a person to rely on something outside of them to change their internal state, is it possible that we could use the kaleidoscope to induce a level of trance, expose you to imagery that actually could cause your autonomic nervous system to manufacture chemicals that prepare you for a mystical experience? That's what the kaleidoscope will be used for today. Now, I want to call Hemel on to the stage, Dr. Hemel, because I wanted him to talk to you about an experiment we did with the power of intention. And once we understand how we can begin to change our biology, we're going to go right to the very substrates, the very molecules of the mystical, and we'll begin to talk about those. We'll take a break and we'll get right into manufacturing those chemicals. What do you say? Here's Dr. Hemel.
It's about to get crazy. It's about to go down. It's about to get crazy. It's gonna be loud.
You're talking about those commercials. The one I remember, and I can never figure out why there's bathtubs when they're trying to sell that thing to males, right? Anyway. See, they know. There's suggestibility in it. So this experiment we did a couple years ago, a good friend of mine is a geneticist at UCSD, and she was attending an event, and when we are suggestible towards the end of the week when we're a little exhausted and we're just sitting around talking, she'd experienced the week, and she thought, well, what if we could ask people to think about something and we can actually make it happen? And as a geneticist, she's like, well, what if we target some genes? And so this concept of mind over matter, can a thought that has intention and attention tied to it create something? And so we gave individuals specific gene targets and asked them to alter them in their expression state. We didn't say make them go up, we didn't say make them go down, we just said alter them. We wanted some innate intelligence to have some feedback into this. And then we wanted to show that the control group had no effect, and so we had to create a control group. Scientists are deceptive in lots of ways, and we have to deceive to get a control group and figure out if the experiment is actually working. And so I'm going to lead you through what we came up with. And so the study design was very simple, right? We know that something happens in this room. We've been trying to figure this out for 5 years, and one thing I'm certain of is that something happens. I don't know exactly what, but I know something happens in this room. A lot of the things that we see are resolutions of crazy, amazing diseases. And a lot of diseases are linked to changes in molecules. And so there are certain mutations, certain proteins that are not being produced the right way that lead to that manifestation of that disease. And so the idea is if people are healing, somehow those molecular endpoints are changing. And I showed you some evidence for this yesterday, where you can endogenously create molecules, where you can change the epigenetic signature of your DNA, and you can essentially express yourself in a completely different way inside out, with your gut microbiome, with the words you use, with everything and all that you are. And so we wanted to put this to a focus test. And so the question was, can the mind, through attention and focus, control the expression of a particular set of genes? And so we recruited 70 people into this study, and they were randomized. As they appeared at the registration desk, one group went into the experimental arm, one group went into the control arm. They didn't know which arm they were in. All of them then, I gave 2 lectures to each of these 2 sets of groups. I taught them all about cells, molecular regulation, 5 genes that they were going to focus on for their health and importance for us throughout that week. I doubt many of them remembered anything after they left the room, because it was a lot of scientific detail, and if you haven't been to grad school, it's tough to process all that information. But they knew the gist of the experiment, that they were going to intently focus on something and try to create. So their task was then to spend the week intentionally focusing on changing the expression of these 5 genes. So every morning they got this flashcard, and I'll show you in a second what the flashcard looked like, which had the gene names and the structures of the proteins that these genes would make. They were carrying that intention into every meditation they went into, and the idea was to change that expression of these series of proteins. They were asked not to do any research on this, and there's a reason, right? If you were to look these up, you could tell easily if you were in the control group or if you were in the experimental group. We did a pre-collection of samples before anyone knew what was going on. So once they were randomized, they went and got their blood collected. They didn't really understand or know exactly what they were getting themselves into in this experiment. And then we let them go throughout the week, and we collected a sample at the end of the week. So now we can look to see from the beginning to the end, are they making targeted changes in these specific things we asked them to change over time? So central dogma, right? It suggests that DNA makes RNA makes protein. And so the DNA you're born with leads to, which is the cookbook. There's recipes that come out of this, and these recipes you can make different types of breads and other things. We've always thought that the DNA is locked. Well, it turns out epigenetics messes all of that up. So there are environmental pressures, like being in a room like this and experiencing a deep meditative event, that then causes changes and transformation in this DNA that then changes how these proteins start to express. And so the potential may or may not be there for this room and these group of individuals we picked to express these proteins, but what they're going through, this idea of all of them having this focused attention and intention on regulating these, is a way to see if there's an epigenetic pressure that these guys can induce with mind over matter to then change how their proteins express. If this is true, then it suggests that the body is really more powerful than the genetics that we have, that we can manipulate this at will in a unique kind of way. This is a far out statement, and I'm saying this because I've seen the data and it looks quite interesting, but we're not sure yet, right? There's a lot of things still left to do. So let's see, look at the design. So these are the flashcards that they got. So one protein, as we were designing this experiment, it was just coming out of the pandemic. We had discovered this protein called SERPINA5. It was everywhere. If you had been to an event, if you're in this space, you knew what SERPINA5 was. And to get the experimental and control groups into the mindset that they were in the real experiment, this is the first target that they got. So group A is the experimental group. They are the 5 real genes that they get. So the ones you see, interferon regulatory factor, ATP synthase, histone, extracellular superoxide dismutase, these are all real proteins that do amazing things in the body. And we didn't want to give them a target because all amazing things can do non-amazing things if you go in the wrong or sideways direction. And so change the expression of those. Group B was given that SERPINA5 target. So this goes back to these commercials, right? So the commercial was, you're in this study, right? And our idea was that we pull them in. SERPINA5 is a real protein. It has an importance. This is a target we're going to give you. And the idea is that by showing them that as the first thing that they're going to focus on, the rest of it becomes a part of that. Turns out there is no protein called related regulatory factor 5, even though it sounds really cool. I made the rest of them up. And the structures don't exist. I borrowed them from something else, and they don't, there's no sense, rhyme, or reason to any of that. The only thing real in group B is SERPINA5, the rest are fake. So then we have them go through this week. They each look at these flashcards every day. Every meditation, they're focused on changing that expression of this gene and then ultimately the protein. So SERPINA5 is a huge class of proteins in the blood. It does a lot of cool things. It's an inhibitor of proteases that allow things to get chopped and move into the cell. This protein inhibits that chopping effect and creates unique biology. It's been involved in cancer, Alzheimer's, MS, digestive disorders, everything. It's a very ubiquitous and important protein in biology. Interferon regulatory factor 1 is an important transcription factor that's involved in tumor suppression and is involved in cancer biology. And so these were the 2 things we could easily buy assays off the shelf for and measure, and the other things we're starting to look at as well. And so I'll show you data on these 2. And so this is the data. So if you remember, group A is the group that focused on 5 real things, and this is looking at SERPINA5 protein expression levels in group A versus group B. Group B focused on SERPINA5, but 4 fake things. And so this is this curious thing. SERPINA5 is a real target. It's a real protein. But 97% of the people in group A, the group that got 5 real things to focus and target, elevated the expression of SERPINA5. Very few individuals in group B elevated the expression of SERPINA5, right? So a lot of librarians and computer scientists came up to me when I started presenting this data, and the suggestion was that there is an intelligence that the brain has, and it operates like computer systems and library systems operate with Boolean logic, right? This idea of and or. In our guidance for what we were telling these people to do, the instruction was elevate Serpent A5 and this, and this, and this, and so on. So the code was and. So each of those statements had to be true in order to get that expression to happen. So for group A, that code completely checks out, right? Serpent A5 and the 4 other things fit because they're real, they exist, the body and mind can work with that matter. For group B, Serpent A5 was the only real thing, everything else was fake, so that logic doesn't sit there anymore. And somehow in that process, this attention and intention experiment showed that the group that's given these real targets can target them in a dramatic kind of way. And they significantly change Serpent A5, and then group A significantly changes IRF1, whereas group B does not. And this is this crazy thing, right? How can focusing your attention and intention on something you know nothing to very little about change that expression? Shows the power of the mind to really control matter in a dramatic, minuscule, unique kind of way.
Right. And the cool part about it is that the educated, intellectual, analytical mind is not engaged in the process. It is only being used to have the intention to regulate that gene to make that protein. The conscious mind does not know how many amino acids make up that protein, the length of that protein, the order of those amino acids, its atomic weight, its atomic structure, how it folds on itself. The educated analytical mind has no idea how to fabricate those molecules. And yet the intention, with intention, when the mind and body are in the right state to receive it, acts as information, and somehow 97% of the people upregulated that gene and made that protein, and just about 97% began to trend in the same way for interferon. So in some way, the mind is influencing the body to regulate genes independent, even if you know how to do it. The innate intelligence of the body somehow fulfills the order. And in the second experiment with the fake proteins and genes, the innate intelligence knew the order was corrupt. And because if one of those were fake, it's not going to fulfill the order at all. And there was no change at all in Serpent A5 in the control group because the order was corrupt. How many people understand? Turn to the person next to you and explain.
It's good.
I'm going to use this now. Say it another way. Hemmel gives the people a short course in molecular biology. These people are given 5 flashcards. Is it 5 flashcards? 5 flashcards, and each one of those flashcards has one of these proteins that they look at. They finish their meditation, they look at each one of these, they close their eyes, and all they do is have the intention to regulate the gene after the meditation. How many people understand? And just about the majority of the people, 97%, what is that? More than 9 out of 10. The majority of those people were actually able to regulate the gene and make the protein by thought alone. How many people understand? Okay, now let's go back to the brain scans we were looking at. When we were looking at those brain scans and those people were hitting those elevated states, where they were connecting and super high levels of gamma brainwaves taking place in their nervous system. We knew that in that moment that right around the limbic brain was on fire, but the area where the pineal gland was, the brain's radio receiver, was somehow hot as well. And the pineal gland is a transducer. And a transducer takes a signal in one form and turns it into another form. So the physics of connecting to that invisible field of energy, all frequency carries And our fMRI studies show that when the brain is really highly synchronized, when there's no low modulation, no low compartmentalization, more synchronization, more order, that we can predict that there's going to be a mystical experience. So then the person now has a coherent brain, and the pineal gland then, that's sitting right on the top of the autonomic nervous system, is transducing information in the form of frequency into chemistry. And since serotonin and melatonin are a function of the wavelength of visible light, you're going to learn about this more extensively tomorrow, but when you open your eyes and your eye perceives light, whether it's from the sun or from any light like in the room here, the moment the wavelength of light passes into your eye, it hits the optic nerve, and that stimulation of that frequency, that exact wavelength, causes the pineal gland to get busy making serotonin. And serotonin creates beta brainwave states in your conscious and local in space and time. You with me? Well, the moment there's darkness and there's an inhibition of light, the lack of light making it back to the optic nerve sends another signal to the pineal gland, and the pineal gland takes serotonin and turns it into melatonin. Melatonin is the nighttime neurotransmitter that kind of slows your brain waves down so your body can ultimately move into a catatonic state and rest and repair and grow again. Are you with me still? And there's a rhythm that takes place based on lightness and darkness that the body gets entrained to, called the circadian rhythm. Are you with me still? Are you with me? So serotonin then is a function of the frequency or the wavelength of light. Well, what happens when these people are connecting with their pineal gland to a frequency that's not the wavelength of light? If it's a faster frequency, faster than the wavelength of light, melatonin can no longer be melatonin, and serotonin can't be serotonin any longer either. Now they get an upgrade, and those upgrade of those molecules, the pineal gland begins to make derivatives of melatonin that fit in the same receptor sites as serotonin and melatonin, but it's no longer melatonin, it's an upgraded version of melatonin. And now melatonin already is an antioxidant. You produce two of the most powerful antioxidants known to man. Melatonin already causes you to relax. Now you're going to make a benzodiazepine similar molecule, and you're really going to relax. It's Valium. Suppresses the survival centers. Melatonin already causes you to relax and go to sleep. Now you're going to hibernate. Derivative of melatonin. All of a sudden, melatonin is already a neurotransmitter. Now it's going to produce a phospholuminescent chemical found in electric eels, a biophospholuminescent chemical that creates high amplitudes of energy in the nervous system. Now, melatonin already causes you to dream, but now you're going to get an upgraded version, and that's going to be dimethyltryptamine. And now the brain is going to have the most powerful hallucinogenic known to man. And that change in chemistry is causing the person in that state to have a full-on sensory experience without their senses. Are you with me? And what would happen right now if you had a transcendental moment where your senses were heightened to a greater degree than you're experiencing reality right now? Would you agree that your awareness of everything that you would be experiencing would be heightened as well? Think about it. If everything you were seeing and smelling and hearing and tasting and feeling right now was amplified by 20%, your experience of reality would change as well. Yes or no? And the brain begins to create these derivatives, and those derivatives fit in the same receptor sites, but now the person is going to have a transcendental experience, and they're going to see beyond the veil. And we call that the unknown or the mystical, having an experience with interaction with energy and frequency in the immaterial. And there's more information in the immaterial than there is in the material. And so the question then becomes, based on our data, we discovered that tryptophan levels are elevated in meditators. Now, what is tryptophan? It's one amino acid. Go to the next slide, Andrew. Your body is a protein-producing machine. Muscle cells make muscle proteins called actin and myosin. Skin cells make skin proteins called collagen and elastin. Your stomach cells make stomach proteins called enzymes. Your body's a protein-producing machine. In order for your body to make a protein, a cell, a gene has to be regulated. So genes make proteins. Come on, you with me? And proteins are made up of amino acids, and there's 22 amino acids that are essential for human beings. Are you with me still? Take those amino acids and put them together in a different sequence or a different length, you create what's called a protein. Now, peptides are short chain proteins under 200 amino acids in length. If you have a short protein, it's a signaling molecule, and it's called a peptide. Greater than 200 amino acids, it's called a protein. Are you with me still? And what gives the characteristics of the protein is the length of those amino acids, that chain, and the sequence, the order of how they are. Change the order of amino acids, you change the identity of the protein. And genes are the transcription mechanism that codes to make proteins. Come on, you with me? And proteins are responsible for the structure and function of your body. And the expression of proteins is the expression of life. Those people that were looking at the flashcards to regulate that protein, somehow the innate intelligence of the body organized 908 amino acids in the right sequence and in the right length to make serpin A5. They didn't know how to consciously do that, but they programmed the gene to do that. Come on, you with me? Now, let's go to the next slide. L-tryptophan is the amino acid, one amino acid, not 908. We're asking you to work on one amino acid. And one amino acid can turn into serotonin, and serotonin can turn into melatonin. It only takes one amino acid, not 908, just one amino acid that makes that neurotransmitter. Come on, you with me? And the pineal gland is that part of the brain that actually does that. So what if then we use the kaleidoscope and we started the meditation by you closing your eyes and opening your awareness to nothing and putting your attention on the brain's radio receiver, that pineal gland, and where you place your attention is where you place your energy. And I want you to place your attention on that pineal gland. I'm going to ask you to feel it, to experience it, to stay aware of it, to give it your energy with your attention, aware of nothing but your connection to that gland that sits between the back of your throat and the back of your head. That's your target. And if you can keep your attention on it, you're feeding it energy and you're giving it life. Are you with me still? Now, if it is a radio receiver, and you have one, there's a latent system in the brain that has to be activated. So while you keep your attention on that pineal gland, I'm going to ask you to tune in to the energy of the mystical. What is the energy of the mystical? What is the mystical? The unknown. What is the unknown? What we don't know. There's more information in the immaterial than there is in the material. So let's open our minds to something we don't know. Could we then rest our attention on that pineal gland and tune in to a field of energy? Not a little beach ball, but a hot air balloon. Could you tune in with number 6 to the energy of the mystical? Could you do that? I'm going to give you a period of time for you to get connected to that pineal gland, and then the music's going to change. And when the music changes, the kaleidoscope is going to start. I'm going to ask you to open your awareness to that energy of the mystical while you rest your attention on that pineal gland, and I'm going to ask you to gaze into the kaleidoscope, right into its source, right into its center. And as you open your awareness and you gaze into the kaleidoscope, I'm going to keep reminding you to relax, to stay relaxed and awake. Relax your body, feel it, relax it, slow it down. All I want you to do is stay in that state where you're in trance, you're not analyzing, you're not thinking, you're opening your awareness, and you're just fascinated and transfixed on the images. And as you look into its source, right into its center, and you open your awareness, just let it come in. Then after a period of time, I'm going to bleed an image in of a mystical experience. And just like a television commercial, I'm going to say, you know, Jane, the mystical could happen to you. I'll say to you, remember this image. What is this person experiencing? And how would it feel? Feel it and remember the image. Feel your connection to it and remember the image. Remember the image. And how would it feel if it happened to you? Feel it and remember the image. And it only takes a thought and a feeling, an image and an emotion, a stimulus and response, and we can begin to program your autonomic nervous system to manufacture a pharmacy of chemicals equal to the information you're being exposed to. Are you with me? And then I'll ask you to close your eyes. And as you close your eyes, I'm going to let you drift for just a few minutes, and then I'm going to ask you to remember the image. And right in that state where your body is resting in a light sleep while you're conscious and awake, conscious in your subconscious mind, I'm going to ask you to remember the image. I'm going to ask you, what was that person experiencing? Experience it and remember the image. And how would it feel if it happened to you? Feel it and remember the image. Become the experience and remember the image. And all I want you to do is remember the image and feel the thought and the feeling, and you're conditioning your autonomic nervous system. Are you with me still? We'll tune back into the energy of the sixth energy center. You'll open your awareness, get you out and connecting to that field. You open your eyes then, you go right back into the kaleidoscope, and we'll get you in that state of theta where you're relaxed in a light sleep while you're conscious and awake. Please resist the urge to close your eyes. Stay right in that realm, and then we'll bleed another image in. And I'll ask you what's happening to this person and how would it feel. We'll go through that. And I'll ask you to close your eyes. And I'll talk to you again. And then we're going to bring in one of those molecules, one of those very molecules that create the mystical. And just like those people that were focusing on those cards, I want your brain in that state of trance and suggestible, and I want you to open the exposure to the lens and just let the information come in. Are you with me? I don't want you to try to do anything. I don't want you to try to memorize it. I just want you to let it in. And I'm going to say N-dimethyl-5-methoxytryptamine, DMT. And I'm going to say to you, feel it with 6. It's N-dimethyl-5-methoxytryptamine. Feel your connection to it with 6. And all I want you to do is open up and just look right at it. I'm going to say N-dimethyl-5-methoxytryptamine. It's released from 6. Feel it. And I'll do that a few times, then you're going to close your eyes. I'm going to let you pause for a period of time. Your brain waves will slow down. And then I'll say to you, N-dimethyl-5-methoxytryptamine. It's released from 6. Feel it in 6. And all I want you to do is follow the instructions. Are you with me? It's released from 6, and then I'm going to say to you, it's for your heart. Feel it. The mystical. The molecules of the mystical for your heart. Feel it with your heart. Feel your connection to it with your heart. We'll go through a few molecules, and then you'll lay down, and your autonomic nervous system is going to get really busy fulfilling the order. How does that sound? Now, for those of you who are joining us that are new to this, that are live streaming, the pineal gland is the 6th center in this work. So if you hear me say 6, I want you to find that point between the back of your throat and the back of your head. There's a tiny little radio receiver in there. Just fish around and find it. That's your point. Now, I want to show you a couple quick scans here really quickly. Take a look at this person who is gazing at the kaleidoscope. You see that second circle at the bottom? That represents theta. Red means what? A lot of theta. If they're in theta, they're suggestible to what? Information. Their analytical mind is suppressed. The door between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind is wide open to information. Take a look at the next slide. This is their brain, their whole entire brain in theta while they're looking at the kaleidoscope. That's a lot of theta. Anything that they're being exposed to is going to be programmed into their autonomic nervous system. Next slide. Now, a lot of times we used imagery for people when they looked into the kaleidoscope, a movie that they made of their future, but in this case, we're going to be using an image of the mystical. Take a look at what happens to their brain. Next slide. Take a look at what happens to their brain in the kaleidoscope. That's theta. You see that? There's a lot of theta taking place in their brain. That means what? The door is wide open to whatever they're going to be exposed to next. Expose them to information after they're suggestible in the kaleidoscope and watch what happens. Next slide. I guess it's not there. But after that, when we expose people to any information after that, their brain moves into these elegant states of gamma. Whatever's going in, they're living that experience in the moment. So, we're going to move right into the meditation. For those of you that are joining us from a live stream, my recommendation is for you to not use your phone, to use your computer just for a bigger image. Those of you who are in the audience, make sure you can see a screen very clearly. We'll start with our eyes closed. We'll tune into the energy of the mystical with the pineal gland, number 6, the brain's radio receiver. When you're in that state, we'll switch over to the kaleidoscope, and we'll go through a few rounds in a state of trance. Lay your body down when it's over, and allow your autonomic nervous system to consolidate all that information. Make sure you have a comfortable place, those of you that are joining us on live stream, a comfortable place to sit and to lie down. You'll be lying down, seated during most of the meditation. Then you'll lie down towards the end. Make sure you have eye shades. Make sure you have headphones so that you're the only one hearing it. You're kind of in a closed system. Have a blanket for when you lay down so you're comfortable. Those of you in the audience, we are just going to drop right into nothing, and then we'll tune in to that energy of the mystical. 6. Sit up. Eyes closed. Take a breath. And relax. Your body. Feel. Your entire body. And relax. Sit. More.
Tune in. To all the nothing. Feel it. All the nothing. Feel your connection to it. All the nothing. Experience it. All the nothing. Become it. Become nothing. Aware of nothing. But six. Find it. Six. Feel it with six. Feel your connection to it. Six. In nothing. But six. Feel it. With six. Give it your energy. With your attention. Six. Aware of nothing. Six. That's energy. For 6, feel it. That's energy. For 6, feel it. In nothing. That's energy. For 6, and remember this feeling. 6, in nothing. Remember this feeling. 6, in nothing. Tune in to the energy of the mystical within you. 6, feel it. All around you. In nothing. Sense your connection to it. To the energy of the mystical. With 6, tune in. And receive. 6, feel it. Relax into it. Receive that energy. 6, feel it. Relax into it. 6, receive. That's energy. For 6, in nothing. The longer you're conscious of this energy, 6, the more energy of the mystical within you. 6. Way out. All around you. 6. Receive. That's energy. For 6. That's energy. For 6. Receive. Feel it. Experience it. In nothing. 6. It's all around you. Receive. And remember, this feeling six. It's your connection to the mystical with six. In nothing. Remember this feeling slowly open your eyes. Take a breath. And relax. Your body Feel it. And relax it. More. Slow it down. Tune in. To the energy of the mystical. With 6. Within you. 6. And all around you. Gaze. To patterns. Relax. Receive. How far can your awareness go? Into its source. Relax. Receive into its source. Remember the image. Feel it. 6. Remember the image. Feel your connection to it. With 6. What is this person experiencing? Experience it. 6. And remember the image. How would it feel? What's happening to you? Feel it. 6. Remember the image. Feel it. 6. And remember the image. 6. Become more aware of it. Remember the image. 6. Eyes closed. Remember the image. With 6. Remember the image. What is the person experiencing? Experience it. And remember the image. It's sick. And how would it feel? If it was happening to you? Feel it. And remember the image. The sex. And how would it feel? If it already happened to you? Feel it. The sex. And remember the image. The sex. Feel it. Sex. And remember the image. Fall in love with it. With sex. Feel it. Sex. And remember the image. N-dimethyl 5-methoxytryptamine, DMT. Feel it with 6. N-dimethyl 5-methoxytryptamine, DMT. Feel your connection to it with 6. N-dimethyl 5-methoxytryptamine, DMT. Released from 6. Feel it. N-dimethyl 5-methoxytryptamine, released from 6. Feel it with 6. N-dimethyl 5-methoxytryptamine, DMT. Released from 6. Feel it. 6. N-dimethyl 5-methoxytryptamine, DMT. From 6. Feel it with 6. Eyes closed. N-dimethyl 5-methoxytryptamine, DMT. Feel it with 6. N-dimethyl 5-methoxytryptamine, DMT. Feel your connection to it. 6. Feel it with 6. It's N-dimethyl 5-methoxytryptamine, DMT, released from 6. Feel it. It's released from 6. Feel it. It's N-dimethyl 5-methoxytryptamine, DMT, released from 6. Feel it. It's released from 6. Feel it. It's N-dimethyl 5-methoxytryptamine, DMT, released from 6. Feel it. N-dimethyl 5-methoxytryptamine, DMT. Feel it. 6. It's released from 6. Feel it. DMT, released from 6. Feel it. It's for your heart. Feel it. N-dimethyl 5-methoxytryptamine, DMT, released from 6. Feel it. It's for your heart. Feel it with your heart. It's for your heart. Feel it. N-dimethyl 5-methoxytryptamine, DMT. It's for your heart. Feel it. With your heart. Released from 6. Feel it. To your heart. Feel it. It's N-dimethyl 5-methoxytryptamine, released from 6. Feel it. To your heart. Feel it with your heart. From 6. Feel it. With your heart. within you. Sick. Feel it in nothing. Sick. It's all around you. Tune in to the mystical within you. Sit. Feel it. All around you. Tune in, receive, to sit, feel it, relax into it. Receive. Sit. Feel it. That's energy. Sit. Feel it. Feel your connection to it. To the mystical with sick. In nothing. Sick. Slowly open your eyes. Relax. Receive. Sit. Gaze. Into its source. Into its source. beta carboline. Feel it with 6. Beta carboline. Feel your connection to it with 6. Beta carboline is released from 6. Feel it. Release from 6. Feel it. It's beta carboline. Release from 6. Feel it with 6. Beta carboline. Release from 6. Feel it. 6. Beta carboline. Feel it. 6. Eyes closed. Beta carboline. Feel it. 6. It's beta carboline. Release from 6. Beta carboline. Feel it. With 6. Beta carboline. Released from 6. Feel it. Release from 6. beta carboline, and 6, feel it. Release from 6, feel it. Feel your connection to it, to beta carboline with 6. Beta carboline released from 6. Feel it. Release from 6. Feel it. It's for your heart. Beta carboline is for your heart. Feel it with your heart. Beta carboline released from 6. Feel it with your heart. Beta carboline is for your heart. Feel it with your heart. From 6, feel it to your heart. Beta carboline is released from 6. Feel it with 6. For your heart, feel it with your heart, and receive beta carboline to your heart. Feel it with your heart. Release from 6. Feel it to your heart. Beta carboline is for your heart. Feel it with your heart. Without breaking your state, lay your body down. And your back. Relax your spine. To the ground. drift away. Come back to me. What happened to you? Come back. And remember, and bring it back. To a joyful body. To a joyful environment. To a joyful time. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. Oh boy. And come back to this space and time.
Now, those of you who joined us on the live stream, thank you so much. The audience erupted in a state of laughter and joy, and I think it's the best medicine. It's the best prayer, so I let them have it. I hope you enjoyed the meditation. My staff has been asking me to do the molecules for the general public, and I have waited for a period of time. So this is our first time that we've ever done it, in an in-person retreat. Thank you so much. Those of you who are joining us live and want to go further down the rabbit hole, we have week-long retreats available. We have some space, some openings in Washington, D.C., August 2nd to the 8th. We have Nashville, September 14th through the 20th, if you want to deepen your understanding. It'll be available for 24 hours, the live stream. Those of you who are in the event here, we're going to go deeper with the kaleidoscope in the next 2 days. We're going to go a little further. We're going to deepen our understanding. Did you like that? Back in 30 minutes and just do a short little presentation, and we'll be done for the day. Thank you for joining us.